Good afternoon, everyone. So, this is episode 2. Sorry about taking so long to get back to this one, but I was trying to figure a few things out before I posted another one. Wanted to talk today about traveling. I don't just mean like your vacation. I mean traveling to a country where you can't speak the language. Well, not when you first get there. You know, different culture. And for me, that was Ukraine. I lived there for 10 years. Got this little miracle of a 4-year-old running around because of it. Um, and it's not just shocking at times, but sort of a rebirth. There's things like when you get there and you're trying to get through customs and you don't understand what the guy's asking you. And this was 10 years ago, so they really didn't have many people could speak English working at the airports. Um, so that was an interesting trip. And there's some things that happen outside the airport, scammers. Um, from what I understood, it was just a start of people coming over because when I would be in the city, people would be like, "You're American, really? Can I get a picture with you?" For them it was something new. There's an American here. Look, there's an American here, and mostly because, you know, Kiev. A lot of people went to, but Kharkov, which is over towards Russia, not too many at that time. Um, so it got there, and a lot of good conversations. People like, we sit with me, we have a word with me. About one in every 70 people could speak some English, a little bit of English. And they were all excited, like, oh, there's a foreigner. For me, it was exciting too. I mean, everywhere you looked, not just beautiful girls, but pretty intelligent women. You know, um, Things I had never saw before. Tanks from World War II sitting around as like trophy pieces, and trying to go to the store, and the poor person at the meat department trying to understand what this foreigner is trying to get from them. And, I remember the first time. Luckily for me, hamburger, just hamburger. They understood. Girl figured it out pretty quick. Except in Russian, the meat is called farsh. But the woman understood what I wanted. So I ordered 1 pound. That don't translate well because they do kilograms. So she gave me 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds, basically. Um, and you're trying to tell people what you want. And as you're pointing, and they're trying to, like, okay, I guess he wants this. Maybe is this? Nope, not right. And big thing for me being an American, was like the shoes. And it wasn't so difficult because I had a Japanese girlfriend for 2 years in Los Angeles. So I I understand pretty quickly, like, okay, go by the Asian rules. You take your shoes off. You put slippers on. You put on your inside clothes. You don't wear the same clothes outside inside. That was a thing that took me a long time to get used to. But you need a different set of clothing for when you go to bed. And some of them were so frantic, like if you sat down on the sheets with your inside clothes, it was the end of the world. Germs. That was, a few people were like that. Girlfriends. No, no, no. Um, and me, coming and sitting down on the comforter of my jeans from outside. First girlfriend just. I was lucky with her. In 3 months' time, she was speaking fluently. She took English, but had no practice at speaking. And she was a smart girl. She's a very smart cookie. She read Terry Pratchett in English. Um, yeah, some people have a hard time understanding Terry Pratchett in their native language, and she could do it in English. So the girl's pretty sharp. But I remember there was a time she was at the pharmacy, and she called me, just having conversation. She's waiting in line, and this Ukrainian guy was like, "Excuse me, can I go ahead of you?" And she answered him in Russian. And he was like, "Wow, your Russian you speak as we do." And she's like, "I'm Ukrainian." He's like, "I thought you were British the way you spoke English." And yeah, Julia's really, really good at English. So I got lucky. Actually, her cousin could speak English pretty well. Some of the weird things is you learn in these Soviet countries, like what they were taught by their teacher was absolute. Like the letter W, it is W. It is not WV. But because his English teacher told him it was WV and should be pronounced VA, that's the way it always was. Despite me explaining to him, no, not at all. It's not this way. I had a lot of fun with him. Took me around to different rock concerts. He was a guitarist too, so we had a common language. Guitar stores was our favorite thing. Discussing how ridiculous a guitar being overpriced in a country that people make $400 a month on average. So a guitar cost me like $600 in America. I won't pay minimum $700 in Ukraine. Minimum. They're coming from China, Korea, and Thailand. Most of these. Not coming from the United States. You don't get into a U.S. guitar until you step into like $1,000 range. That's usually about starting price for an American guitar. So when you're getting these lower quality guitars, which are still good, they're slapping $100 on. Well, then you get into the American made guitars, and sweet Jesus, like $200, $300, $400 more. We're not talking Guitar Center prices. We're talking full retail, small music store over that price. So, yeah. But it was things being opened up to you. I learned more about other foreign countries from Ukraine than I did in the United States. And you meet people that are from all different countries. The cultures are different. You sit down, you have a cup of coffee or tea, and you sit there and you talk about things, and one conversation can be like 2, 3, 4 hours. If time is permitting for both people. Something I know since I came back to the U.S., at least in this small town, no. But yeah, 10 years, a lot changed for me. I mean, being the first and only member of the Ukrainian Crimean Aikikai Aikido Federation. Excuse me. The best part of that was not the Aikido. Sensei Sergei Sepernov was awesome. I was very lucky to have him as a sensei. But it was meeting people from Serbia, meeting people from Russia, 2 gentlemen from Belgium. One was a guest sensei that was an instructor that taught once a day. There was 3 lessons a day during the seminars. You have people from all different countries. And his friend came with him. his friend was into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he trained, different people. And the following month, he had a gig out in California. He was going to go train some people at a seminar. And it was kind of interesting because he spoke English extremely well. Now, Sergey had the bright idea, like, hey, Jamie speaks English. The sensei from Belgium speaks English. Let's have him ask questions for our social media. Well, the poor guy asked me like 4 times, or asked me what I said 4 times before his friend stepped in and translated it, and you're going to have to forgive me. Theorish, or whatever they speak in Belgium. Someone's going to have to put that down in I guess on YouTube in the comments. Spotify guys, I don't know what you're going to do to correct me on this. But, and he laughed and he goes, it's funny. He goes, I go to Russia, I go to Ukraine, I go to Japan. I speak to all the senseis in English, but every time I meet a British person or American, I can't understand them. And great guy though. Once we were face to face, and he could see my lips, and I spoke slower for him. It was a different ordeal, but it was, meeting guys and girls from Serbia, Russia. I have standing invitations by 3 different Russian senseis to go show up. I don't think it's because I'm so good. I just think it's because I'm affable, not egotistical. I get along with everyone, and I like listening. I think people miss that a lot in life. I got this one neighbor. All he does is talk. Never listens to anyone. Anyone tells him anything, he's like, well, yeah, okay, I gotta go. But that was the one real thing I'd like to see that was over in Europe come here more. Just people be more interested in other people and not themselves. Which I suspect, I know in the city people. Well, wait a second here. Yeah, it was mostly my Brazilian and Hispanic friends that were more apt into listening, but okay. Not all Americans are that way. I have great conversations with a few people, just it's a small town. But I still remember, and the best part about Sergei Sepranov was him with kids. Half of his students was like 8 or below. And seeing him work with his daughter, beautiful girl. I think she's like 21, 22 now. And her help her dad, with the younger students. And just it was like watching a small family train, and that what was it, 7 days we spent in Crimea, and my team was from Kharkov, that I came down with, and Sergei seen me, and it was his student that was teaching me. So my original sensei became my senpai, and Sergei became my sensei. My original sensei was not happy that his sensei made me a member of the team. There were a few guys from Kharkov that was upset about it, but it is what it is. And the other thing, the humor. The Eastern European or Russian humor is like a lot of them referred to. I was standing in line waiting to order a Snickers. We have 15 minutes till the next training session. And at this point in time, I'm speaking Russian, sort of okay. And a woman was asked me, she's like, "Какой accent? What? What accent? Откуда вы? Where are you from?" Like, no, что есть, то есть. У меня Tajikistan. It's like, well, it is what it is. I'm from Tajikistan. She erupted laughing. And everyone behind me, we're talking like everyone behind me was, had spent the last few days getting to know me at this seminar. And she was like, "You don't look like you're from Tajikistan." And I laughed. And I told her, I was like, I'm from the United States. And she was like, you have good humor, and there's different situations. Like, what ended up being one of my better friends was a shopkeeper up in Kharkov, vegetables. And she was trying to be tricky, asking me, like, so the Russian variant basically translates to, do you want tasty potatoes or not so tasty potatoes? But a lot of foreigners, because of the way it sounds, would have thought, oh, of course I want, very tasty, potatoes. Just the way it sounds in Russian. And I answered to her as like, no, many есть вопрос. У вас есть вкусно? Картошка точно. Я верю не очень, но у вас есть вкусно. And basically I said, well, I have a question for you. Do you have tasty potatoes or very not tasty potatoes? And she laughed and she's like, you have Russian humor. She goes, I've never met a foreigner with Russian humor before. Now keep in mind, I lived in Hollywood for a lot of years. And a lot of my neighbors were Russians, and some will get mad, Armenians. And the guys from that part of the world, they all got kind of the same humor and same understanding, I think it's coming from a hard upbringing, Us Americans really take for granted how easily we get things. Really take for granted. It's been an eye-opener coming back home, and I hear guys telling me they never left our hometown. You don't understand how hard it is. Well, yeah, if you don't keep your job, of course it's not. It's not gonna be an easy road, And just blaming everyone else for their problems, And I've been back 10, 11 months. I got a 4-year-old at my hip. I'm a single parent, and I'm just nose to the grindstone. Gotta do what I gotta do, and but that's a story for a different day. But getting back to Ukraine, it's just in the way they dress. It's like, especially me just coming fresh out of California, like Californians don't really wear suits, and it was expected. Wear a suit, You're teaching ESL, you gotta wear a suit. It's unprofessional to show, and teach your students how to speak without a suit. And so I got used to wearing, 2-piece suit, tie, minimum 2-piece suit. I could get away with blue jeans if I wore, like a dress shirt. But, and just so many things were opened up to me. Going out to the village with my one girlfriend I had out there, to her grandma's house, and no running water. You had a well outside and you had a bucket. They heated the house with coal and fire. And they had a type of chicken we don't have in the U.S. Turns out I'm highly allergic to it. Asthma attacks. It was like, I go from, being able to run 3-4 miles to within an hour of being there, I'm huffing for air. So I would have to eat out. I'd have to sleep out in the kitchen room. And that is a completely different building. Like, where they cooked food and sat and ate was completely different. But there was no blankets that were stuffed with this feather out there. So that's where I'd have to sleep every time I got there. I mean, first time since I was like 13 years old, I needed an inhaler. But luckily in Ukraine, you don't need a prescription. You know, my girlfriend and I went to a pharmacy, and she told them what was going on, and they just told me how much I had to pay. And you know, her grandma, being surprised that I could do chores, said, "Hey, do you think your boyfriend could catch two chickens?" And the aunt was laughing with the grandmother, in Ukrainian, about this should be funny. They didn't realize I was born in backwoods Pennsylvania, and my next door neighbor was a farmer. You know, and I came back not just with two chickens, but two chickens without heads and and bled out. I was like, "This is what you want, right?" And the grandmother looked at her and was like, "Are you sure he's from America?" She's like, "Yeah, but he grew up in the countryside, And I remember sitting drinking vodka with her aunt and grandma, and communication got better the drunker we all got. And her aunt's trying to talk to me about the history of Ukraine, what Stalin had done to them, and she was actually shocked that I knew as much as I did about Soviet history. You know, um, my grandfather was a prisoner of war in World War II, and it was actually the Soviet military broke them out. And it was Soviet soldiers and mostly American soldiers in this prison war camp. So he bestowed to me how important it was to actually learn about history. And she looked at her granddaughter and basically was like, "He's not from here, and he knows more of our history than you do." But at that time, she spoke English as well as I did, and Russian and Ukrainian, it didn't matter. I mean, that's sort of like little Davy. It's kind of amazing to me. I speak Russian, but I make mistakes in grammar. And I will never have the Russian accent. Yeah, Julie and David, it doesn't matter where they're at. She sounds American. I mean, she sounds British, but that's because she likes to watch British TV. David, yeah, there's a few words he sounds British. The kid does, but I watch a lot of Jeremy Clarkson. Sorry, guys. I like American Top Gear or British Top Gear. I'll watch the British one. They've actually got humor. But it changes you. You go there and you think you know everything. When you see this country, not as a tourist, and you start seeing people's hardships, living on $400 a month. Hey, hate to break it to you, but like that TV, that their TVs, their cars are like 2 or 3 times the price of our cars. Or like second-hand cars. The used car market, you're gonna pay like 3 times the amount. I got 2014 Legacy for like $7,000 here in U.S. Very low mileage. They had a car. It was like, I can't remember what year, but it's like 10 years old. And it had like 90 some thousand miles. The guy wanted 10 grand. He's like, "That's a good price. That's a really good price." Well, yet that's the reality. A lot of people don't realize, And people always say like, well, they're not friendly. Well, they're not gonna give you a fake smile, And I notice a lot of guys here they're like, "Why aren't you smiling?" I never did, buddy. That's why I kind of liked Ukraine, because I never had someone come up to me, "You should smile more." No, it's you see it. If I'm talking about something I like or I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I smile. If I see someone, I'm not gonna just do a fake smile. I mean, no. If I'm happy to see you, of course I'm gonna smile. I'm gonna talk to you. It's something that should be earned. But one of the things I really noticed over there that was kind of crazy was like, as the other foreigners come in, the Mormons drove me nuts. I'm not talking about the religion. I just mean the level of disrespect they had. I remember, and this was kind of a ghetto rayon, or ghetto area. I'm sorry, switching languages. The last metro station. I live out what was called Bashoya Ragon. It's like Big Ragon. That's how it translates. And so I got off from the last subway station, and I'd have to ride a bus for 30 minutes. And these guys were at the store, class, guys. For any of you from Ukraine, class is the one you're at. And they're having trouble getting their bags back. So I walk over, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? It's like, can I help you? They're like, oh, you speak English really well. I'm like, yeah, can I help you? And they're like, well, we're trying to get our bags back, but this lady won't give it to us. I was like, well, give me your number. I was like, Zdravствуйте. Пожалуйста, дайте мне наши сумки. Like, hello, please give us our bags. And I hand her over the number. And I think the lady was kind of ignoring them because, there was other people being far more polite with, instead of just throwing their numbers up and saying, hey, And so I went outside with them, and they're like, wow, I'm speaking with them, and they're like, wow, you speak English like we do. I'm like, well, yeah, I was born in Pennsylvania. I'd hope so. Oh, you're American. What are you doing here? And long story short, it went on from that to them complaining about everything. Well, the food here sucks. The chips here suck. What are you talking about? You can buy Lay's here. Of course, if you buy the Ukrainian variant, it's going to be lent more towards Ukrainian taste. I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. I can not stand hamburgers that has cucumbers in it. I want pickles. But I will be nice and be like, excuse me, could you please give me a hamburger with pickles, not cucumbers? And they're like, oh, okay. But these guys, it's not like we like. Well, hey, guys, you're in a foreign country, buddy. Trust me. I heard so many of my Ukrainian friends and Russian friends complain, this restaurant's borscht sucks. You're never going to get the same thing in another country, ever. But that wasn't the only time. I kind of, and I could understand why towards the end of me living there, people were like, oh God, another American. Because I ran across another Mormon, and he's with like a Ukrainian guy as his partner, and they, at this point in time, a couple of years down the road, they were really working hard on teaching these guys how to speak Russian for the 2 years they were over there. And this guy's coming up on the end of his little visit, and he's talking with me, and he has all these preconceptions and strange ideas about, if you're Mormon, you can't be, just weird ideas. And I remember one of my neighbors came up to me on a bicycle. It was nice, spoke nicely to him in Russian, and spoke with his Ukrainian counterpart, and just was being nice. And then he was like, he hit me on the shoulder and was motioned for me to come over to the side. And he wasn't one of those ghetto or gangster types. He was just, we're buddies. He wants to talk to me to the side. So we start speaking in Sergic, as you do in Rogan, which is some Russian, some Ukrainian, and with him a lot of mutt. Guys, I'm an adaptive person. I will speak to you as you speak to me, and I think it's just part of me being a salesperson. I mean, that's the reason I had an easy time at the Lawndale Guitar Center. 1 minute you have a guy from Compton, next minute a guy from South Central, next minute, which the Compton South Central guys basically same thing. And then you'd have the people from like Palos Verdes. One second, guys. We're gonna start another one because it seems that my service just stopped on the other recording, not on the video. So we're gonna have a little bit of a jump here. So at the store, you'd have people from South Central Compton area. Then you'd have like Palos Verdes. Then you'd have like the beach guys. I'll deal with a guy from South Central Compton any day over like someone that thinks they're better than someone because they live in a house up on a ridge. You know, but I usually didn't have any issues because as you spoke to me, I spoke to you. You know, so I adapted. So he and I, you know, bouncing back and forth, and the Mormon's getting upset, asking his counterpart, why don't I understand them? I don't understand them. And he's like, well, it's because they're speaking the Surgic. He's like, what's that? Guy had been in Ukraine for 2 years, didn't know what Surgic was. He's like, they're speaking in Ukrainian-Russian mixture, and they're swearing a lot. And he came up and he's like, hey, you shouldn't talk that way. I'm like, what way? Well, you shouldn't mix two languages. Really? Mr. Expert, Mr. I'm the divine judge of everything. You know, it was just, I just looked at him, and my buddy asked me, he's like, what did he just say? And I explained it to him. And he turned and looked at him, and looked at me, he's like, translate this. You know, you're not from this country. How can you tell us how to speak? You know? Mormon kid got all offended, you know, stomped off. And then you know, a couple years later, keep in mind I was in Ukraine for like 10 years, I ran across a couple Mormons in our area. My new area, I wasn't living, you know, I was living in a better area. I got little Davy with me. And, no, I don't have little Davy with me at this time. And they were lost. And I asked them, I was like, where do you got to go? And they're like, oh. And I explained to them, like, well, why are you here? I'm like, I live here. I have a permanent residence to live here. That's not possible. Yeah, I have a kid and a wife, and that's not possible. How isn't it possible? You know, explain to me, please. I'm curious about this. You know, and fourth Mormon example, I'm in a subway train, and this particular day, I'm missing my language. So I roll up to them and I start speaking to them, and they're like, wow, you speak like we do. Well, I hope so. They're like, where did you learn English from? Backwoods, Pennsylvania? Wow, they did a really good job of teaching you. I'm just like, poof. I'm not trashing all Mormons, but these teenagers that you're sending overseas, like, please educate them a little bit before you send them over. Please. There are ambassadors for our country, for a lot of people that will never beat another American. Please. But, you know, and I think this is sort of, and the NGOs, non-government organizations that go over there, you know, and by the time, you know, my last couple years there, people were like, another bleeping American. Yeah. We were wearing out our welcome. So that was the reason, like, most of the time when I'd, you know, hear other Americans in a coffee shop, like, I would, you know, my friends already knew what the gig was. We were only speaking in Russian because I didn't want someone coming over, saddling up and talking to me, you know, especially, there's a group from World Health Organization, and they were complaining about the hotel they were staying in. It wasn't up to the girls' standards, you know, it was like, wow. I didn't say anything, you know, and my friend comes and sits down, and he's looking at me pretty agitated, and I'm like, I know, I'm thinking the same thing you're thinking, you know, but we're speaking in Russian, you know, and some of the things are different over there. like fishing's different. Like they looked at me funny because I was using I had a fishing reel, and they had fishing poles but a string tied to the end and cast out. You know, and a lot of guys are like, I don't see why you're using that. I'm like, I didn't say a word about how you're fishing. I don't care. It's kind of cool. It's like Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, you know. Um, but it's the one thing like I got a lot over there is like a lot, especially the older guys, like one generation before mine, would tell me, you know, I'm glad I met you. He goes, you know, you don't act like what I thought Americans act like. You know, or I get a response like, wow, you don't act like a lot of the Americans I've met. Well, that's because a lot of the Americans were from cities to start with, you know. You can't, and I had a good balance, you know, like for me being a musician and my one girlfriend when I was younger, she took me to the cities, and I'm not trying to get street cred or anything like that, but Hermosa Street, Buffalo, that's a rough place. I was the only white boy for 4 blocks other than the crackhead. He don't count. He was a father to the one girl, so he was protected. Anyways, those guys never bothered me. I was like a pet to them. Oh, look, there's a white boy. He's got hair extensions. We'll call him Marilyn Manson. He's polite. He opens the door for people at stores. We've never seen anything like this. You know, and sitting here smoking blunts and them watching Kill Whitey videos, and I'm the only white person in the room. Still never forget that day. Those guys were all good to me. Really good to me. I wasn't a gangster or anything like that. I had a pink PV tracer, a wah-wah pedal, and a pig nose amplifier. They just, to them, I was an interesting, like, hey, it's a white person, look. He's in our area. He's not afraid. The one thing was, I'll get back to Ukraine in a second. I went up to the girl and I asked her for a hairbrush, and they all started laughing at me. And long story short, I couldn't understand why. I never thought about it, you know. You know, my girlfriend was kind enough to explain it to me since she was, you know, half black, half Italian. But Ukraine, like, the people were, you know, when I first got there, were so good. I mean, I remember going up to these 2 guys, older than me. We're talking, they were stacked, both of them. They probably worked in a factory or something like that. You know, their hands, like, big fat fingers. These were tough guys, you know, and I walk up to them, I'm like, I ask them, like, Izvinite, it's not to address Pajolsta. And I show them the address. It was for a new IT company had me teaching English, and I'd never been there before, so I had to figure out where it was. Those guys walked me there, and they're explaining to me about Gargarnia. I pronounced it wrong. It was their first astronaut, because it was at that metro station. And, you know, they're talking to me. They walked, by the way, these guys are drunk. And, you know, I'm walking with them, and the guy's like, you know, and the older guys are more into the Soviet Union than the younger guys, you know. And the guy's like, we have a rule. If a foreigner needs to get to a place, we don't leave their side until they're safe. He was like, that has always been how it was in Ukraine. You know, and they walked like a good 15-20 minutes with me. They didn't have to. They could have said, you know, no znaєте, йдуть прямо за кілометр, і ти буде видиш слава. You can go straight ahead for a kilometer and then turn left. but they walked with me. And then they both shook my hand before they took off and wished me luck. And the police, I hear a lot of complaints about the old police. And yes, there's guys that want bribes. There are. But a lot of the guys, when they realized I was a foreigner and they checked my passport, and it's like, well, you have a friend in Ukraine. Please, anytime you see me, come talk to me. And it was kind of a difference in the Ukrainian, I'm trying to think, now they go by policia, but give me a second. I can't remember what they were called before, but it was the old Soviet name they used for them. But anyways, they would want to talk to you, and like, how did you come here, and just ask you questions, and I think it's partly because I was, as I said, I'm affable, and, getting knocks on my door sometimes by some of these guys, like, hey, you want to come out and have a drink with us? Police officers. I very rarely ran across a police officer yet. Never felt physically in danger, ever. Not that menacing, like I got my gun on, got my hand on my gun on my hip. None of that. I mean, you'd see some police officers with an AK-47, and that's if they're on like money detail, like they're going to a bank and they're escorting the money. But you never felt like, oh, I'm gonna get shot. Oh my God, I can't make this. No. They were just, you treated them well, they treated you well. And I think maybe some foreigners would have a hard time understanding, like, they're Ukrainian, they're Russian, they're so unfriendly. No, it's very much the opposite. Just maybe it's because I dealt with Russians a lot in Hollywood that I understand. Oh, this is a friendly person. They're stoic. They're but hey, you tell a joke to make them laugh, and they're your friend forever. Honestly, that cop will look out for you for anything. And it's one of those countries. The more phone numbers you collect of police officers, the better you are. I have a problem. Hello, Sergey. Это ваш друг. Помощник. Я забыл my passport, Hey, Sergey, I need help. I forgot my passport. I don't know how to explain it to you, but it's like, you go there and you become a 3-year-old again. It's just, you have to relearn everything. And that's kind of why I get my 4-year-old when he gets frustrated when people don't understand him, or when I drop him off at daycare, I can see little kids getting frustrated because, someone don't understand them. I just dealt with that 10 years ago, and that's a big thing. I'm almost 42. I spent 1/4 of my life out of the country, and so yeah, things have changed a little bit for me, but I would encourage anyone. It doesn't have to be Ukraine. It doesn't have to be Russia, but if you can go to another country for a year or two, and I'm going to warn you, like the 2-year mark, you're going to start going crazy. And I've read a lot about this. A lot I've read about. These, you get over there and you get homesick, and it's bad. Really homesick. But after you get over that, then, you start feeling like this is home. And the big thing for me, coming back to the United States after 10 years, I left right as Obama won the election. And this is not a political thing, but it's a fact. America changed a lot. I mean, I came back and everyone was offended at everything. I'm like, what? Really? I didn't say the correct pronoun to a person. I can't see their face. I can't see what they self-identify as. Instead of, calmly correcting you and saying, well, I prefer this. Just go nuts. I'm like, what is this? I don't know. I have a lot of gay friends. I know a couple transvestites. It's just like, who cares? Don't touch children. But I don't care. It doesn't matter if you're straight, gay, whatever you pick to identify as. That's just kind of my thing. And what else? There's so many different things now. Like, give me a minute. Pretty much, I'm offended at everything. That's what's really shocking for me. It's just like, I'm not rude. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings unless you hurt someone else's feelings. Then I'll be rude for that person if need be. If I feel this person can't defend themselves. So that's. Give me 1 second, guys. I do apologize. It's during my work day. I don't normally do this, but it's a slow day. And David is at daycare. Okay, so. Anyways, but yeah, just so much had changed. I mean, I don't know how to describe it to you. And the one thing that kind of takes me back is how people talk behind each other's backs or does something to someone, but you're not supposed to say anything about it. I don't care your political background. I don't care anything like that. That's your choice. My choice is my choice. The main thing that I can't say is when people lie to each other, intentionally lie to people, not get something wrong, but I just kind of, why make up false stories or fake things? It's not real. I think it's because I moved back to a small town, and I'm just kind of not used to it anymore. But when you move to another country, let me get back to that. It's like you become a little kid again, and the biggest thing for me, the thing I was really shy, guys, and you won't know that today. I was shy. Yes, I was a salesperson. It was very, 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 very difficult. I let my chops sell for me a lot when I worked at Guitar Center. And the metal guys, it was easy to sell to them. It was like, hey man, what's up? I liked how you're playing that riff, But like, going up to a new person, and just striking up a conversation, that was difficult for me, Though I play guitar on stage, get me to talk on stage? No, not gonna happen. No. But I think two things changed me a lot over there. Number one, going through the little kid phase where you cannot communicate and you have to go through the frustrations of learning how to speak to someone and just feeling that again, but now you're an adult. Now you're processing things a little bit differently. The other real big thing is you're coming from another culture. You're having to learn all their stuff. How you say stuff here, like some of the stuff we say to each other, like, I want that candy bar. That's okay. It's okay. It's not rude. But over there's like 6 different cases at the endings. You guys aren't going to know what cases mean. At the end of the verbs and nouns. And like, abdaj meni je to konfetka, pожалуйста. Or, I said pожалуйста, so that'd be okay. Abdaj meni je to konfetka. It's like, give me that candy. You might get a bad response from the shopkeeper. No, but abdajte just change. You hear that difference? Die versus dieta. Это конфетка. That's a way, especially to an older person, you should say. You want to be extremely nice. Пожалуйста. It's like please. Пожалуйста can also be like think nothing of it. Like someone comes up to you and you're like, hey, thank you. Well, you should think nothing of it. And that's a big thing over there. They don't want to take credit for that's nothing. Don't think nothing of it. Don't mention it. It's okay. Because it is as it should be. And I remember having a guy out in Hollywood explain to me when I bought my first, book in a Russian bookstore. And I was trying to learn to speak to some of my neighbor girls that were, very attractive. And, and he starts explaining to me some things about what's different between the cultures. And, it wasn't just the Russians that taught me that. I had Brazilian roommates out in Hawthorne. And I remember this one girl, she was like gathering up money. They were at a party. I had a married couple I lived with. They were younger. No, they were about, younger my age. And then one single guy. But they would invite all their friends over to our house. We had a big backyard fenced in. And so much so that, when it got hot one time, I put my tent outside and I slept outside because, yes, it's Hawthorne, California, but we had a big fence around our house. But this girl was, gathering money, and she's trying, she speaks English kind of okay. She's been in country about 2 years and working through her issues with English. And she's like, you don't understand. In Brazil, we all chip in. We all help each other. And I was like, we have that in America. She's like, no, you don't understand. She goes, things is much easier in America. She goes, maybe someday you'll understand. Ukraine, I understand now. It's when you go out, you see the hardships some people go through. And it's. I guess America, you could go to the Appalachian Mountains. Those guys have it pretty rough. But it really. You think you know everything, and then you go there and you realize, like, oh Christ. It's like in high school. Our social studies teacher. Yes, over here on the map we have the Soviet Union. It broke apart, and when they decide what countries are there, then we'll teach you what countries are there. They had already decided what countries were there. I didn't know that then, but I know that now. And that was 8th grade. And by the time we hit 12th grade, we never learned what the countries were. I went to 5 different high schools, guys. So it's not just one stupid place. And my siblings all stayed in the first school because they stayed with Mom and I went with Dad. So we do compare notes about schools. It's kind of strange. Like I was speaking to a teacher at not the school my kid will be going to, but neighboring school district. One of the school districts I went to did not know geography at all. It was like scary for me. Like, wow, you're a teacher. Really? And I'm not talking about, some small country, because there are a few of them that are just in some small islands. I can get people not knowing, but we're talking about didn't know that Ukraine was a country, and it takes up like a fifth of the United States of America in size. Or they think it's Russia. That does. Fun fact, really fun fact. When my mother passed and my siblings did obituary, they put in that I lived in Russia, despite me speaking to both of them that week and informing them that I live in Ukraine. I made sure I told them I lived in Ukraine because, But to them, there's no difference. When I came back, it's like, my stepdad was like, you come back for a visa for Russia, Ukraine. Well, it's the same country. No. Well, how do you figure? I'm like, well, that'd be like someone calling you Canadian. Just missed him completely, you know. Um, but just gotta smile. And the other thing, we are doing wrong by our children, guys. Like David speaks Russian, kind of speaks. He understands Ukrainian and he can speak it if he's forced to, because him being born on the east side of the country, not the west side of the country, he speaks Russian. He speaks English and Russian equally as well. Understands pretty much anything in Ukrainian. I mean, he would go to the other side of the country with his mother to see, you know, that side of the family. Um, he, you know, when I'm watching Ukrainian TV shows, he doesn't seem to have an issue with it. But see, when they're little like that, the language portion of the brain is soft wired. So it's like a game for them. It's not difficult. And we're starting in like 9th and 10th grade, and at that point in time, our kids are becoming hardwired. And it's not their fault, it's just how our brains work. So it's like, really, it's like 2nd, 3rd grade, they should start teaching the foreign languages, you know. And I'd be all for, like, you know, exchange students, like 10th, 11th grade, like at that point in time, you know, one kid comes from that country that speaks that language and our kid goes with that, and, you know, swap families. Be good. It'd help people understand each other. I mean, I don't care if it's Italy. Let's use Italy for example. I got a good friend from Italy. His name's David as well. It's funny when he calls and video chat. It's like, "Hey, David, you have a great name." Our cultures are different, you know, and I really think like we would have a better situation if we all got to understand each other a little bit better, you know. So, anyways, I'm going to get off here. You guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.